Good morning, students. Today we are continuing the same lesson, our second lesson of this chapter from Threat to Territory. And today's topic is the doctrine of lapse. Students, as you can see, the name is the doctrine. Doctrine means it's like rule, siddhant, and lapse when something is lapse. So the doctrine of lapse was an annexation policy purportedly devised by Lord Dalhousie. You know, there is a one place also in India, its name is Dalhousie. So Lord Dalhousie introduced this policy and he was the Governor General for East India Company from 1848 to 1856. He devised a policy that came to be known as the doctrine of lapse. The doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse. It means if any king will not hire of his next ruler, then his kingdom will lapse. That is become part of company territory. So one kingdom after another was annexed simply by applying this doctrine. So they are under this policy, these princely states of Satara, Jodhpur, Sambalpur, Nagpur, Jhansi, Awadh, these all places under this doctrine and under of the British territory. Finally, in 1856, the company also took over Awadh, and this time the British had an added argument. They said they were obliged by duty to take over Awadh in order to free the people from misgovernment of the Nawab. Students, our next topic is subsidiary alliances. So, like the doctrine of lapse, this is the doctrine of subsidiary alliance, and it's introduced by Max Wesley. Max Wesley was the Governor General of India from 1798 to 1805. And according this subsidiary alliance, this policy was to play a major role in British expansion. So, what are the main principles? Number one, an Indian ruler entering into a subsidiary alliance with the British had to accept British forces within his territory and also agreed to pay for their maintenance. So, what is the point here? That Indian ruler, they have to agree for the maintenance of their army will be taken care by Britishers, and the ruler would accept a British resident in his state. So by if they want or they don't want, they have to accept it British resident in their state. An Indian ruler who entered into a subsidiary alliance would not enter into any further alliance with any other power. So, they declare war against any power without the permission of British. So, the ruler would not employ any Europeans other than the British. So, here, according to subsidiary alliances, the Lord Wesley, what he said, a term of this, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. Students, here we can see the heading, the company army. So according this heading, you can understand that colonial rule in India brought in some new ideas of administration and reform, but its power rested on its military strength. So Britishers, they setting up a new administration in India. So in that setting up a new administration, they make two courts, criminal court and civil court. And they have in these, they have some like Qazi, Mufti, impeachment. These are the pad for the people. But in their company army, in this company army, they have two kinds of army. One is traditional army and one is professional soldiers. So in traditional army, the Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, yani sawars, trained soldiers on horseback. Sawars, they means is trained soldiers, those who are on horseback. And infantry, that is पैदल soldiers, जो पैदल होते हैं, and they were given training in archery, तीर अंदाजी, and the use of sword. And professional soldiers में हम देखेंगे that a change occurred in the 18th century when Mughal successor states like Awadh and Banaras started recruiting peasants into their armies. So they are taking peasants, farmer in their army, and then they are making them professional soldiers. Students, here you can see many kinds of dresses for the army people. So as warfare technology changed from the 1820s, the requirement of the company's army declined and they started using muskets, matching. Okay students, so now after the company army, now we will see the conclusion of this lesson, that in the end the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to territorial colonial power. And by 1857, the company came to exercise direct rule over about 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent, combined with its indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country. So the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. So students, here our lesson is end. If you have any queries, you can ask me in virtual class, or otherwise you can email me on my email address. Thank you so much.